I want to start today with a very specific feeling. It's not quite burnout, and it's not really exhaustion either.
It's more like erosion.
Yes, erosion, that's the perfect word. It's that feeling at the end of a Tuesday where you're just completely depleted, but when you look back at what you actually did,
Nothing.
nothing. You didn't climb a mountain. You just spent 8 hours stamping out tiny little fires that, honestly, probably didn't even need to be lit.
It's the death by a thousand cuts.
Yeah.
Your energy isn't gone because you ran a marathon.
Huh?
It's gone because you tripped over 100 little pebbles all day.
That is exactly it. And that brings us to the stack of research we're getting into today. We're looking at a philosophy that, if you saw it on a bumper sticker, you might just roll your eyes.
For sure. But when you dig into the sources, and we're talking about everything from military strategy to ancient Stoicism, it's not just a platitude. It's a really rigorous strategic framework.
And the core theme is, don't major in minor things.
A phrase we've all heard, from a parent or a teacher. But looking at this material, especially from people like Peter Drucker on management or Stephen Pressfield on creativity, this isn't about relaxing.
No.
It's about resource management. The whole argument is that most of us are just bleeding out our vital energy on stuff that has zero return on investment.
And there's this one specific tool, or I guess a question, that keeps popping up everywhere in the literature. They call it the magic question.
Right. And the question is simply, is this really important?
Which, to be honest, sounds a little too easy. In the heat of the moment, everything feels important.
Of course.
When I'm drafting an angry email reply or someone cuts me off in traffic, my brain is screaming that this is the most important injustice in the universe right now.
That's the biological trap, right?
Yeah.
That's your amygdala just hijacking the whole system. The sources make a clear distinction between what feels urgent and what is actually significant.
And the experts we're looking at, they frame this as a problem of emotional real estate.
I love that term.
It's so good.
Because it implies scarcity. And that's real. You have a finite amount of land inside your head. If you use it all to build little shacks for every petty grievance and minor annoyance,
Then you have no room left to build the skyscraper you actually want to live in.
exactly. It's an opportunity cost.
Yeah.
If you spend your best morning energy fuming about a comment someone made in a meeting, you are literally trading a strategic victory for a tactical tantrum.
Speaking of tactics and wars, let's get into the first big concept. This one comes from the author Stephen Pressfield, and he uses this metaphor that, it made me laugh out loud, but then I stopped laughing.
Because it was too real.
It's painfully real. You're talking about the battalion and the outhouse.
Yes. So Pressfield is talking about creative work, but really this applies to anything: coding, running a business, even parenting.
Anything.
And he asks, have you ever just blown an entire morning trying to get one single paragraph perfect? Or maybe spending 3 hours formatting a slide deck that's only going to be up for 30 seconds?
Oh, I am so guilty of the slide deck thing. I will obsess over the pixel alignment of a logo for 45 minutes.
We all do it. And Pressfield says, when you do that, the enemy has outfoxed you. You have hung up an entire battalion trying to capture an outhouse.
It's such a brutal image. You have this massive army, all your intelligence, your passion, your education, your battalion.
And you've stalled the entire
should
invasion.
fight tooth and nail for a latrine.
And the tragic part is that it feels like work. That's the danger. We tell ourselves we're being thorough or professional.
Right.
But the sources are crystal clear on this. That is not professionalism.
Right.
That is perfectionism disguised as professionalism.
Okay, let's unpack that, because I think a lot of high achievers wear perfectionism like a badge of honor. We put perfectionists on a resume like it's a good thing.
Yeah, and the research really pushes back on that. Professionalism is about momentum. It's about moving the project forward. Perfectionism is just a stalling tactic. It's fear.
Fear of what?
When you're obsessing over that font choice, you aren't really working. You're hiding from the vulnerability of finishing it. You're capturing the outhouse to avoid the real battle.
Because if I never finish the thing, nobody can judge the thing.
Exactly. If you're still polishing, you're safe, but you're also completely stuck.
So how do we break out of that? There's a concept in the notes here, the paradox of perfection, that seems to offer a way.
This is where it gets a little nuanced. The paradox is this: we have to pursue perfection, but we have to reject perfectionism.
That sounds like a complete contradiction.
Think of it as direction versus destination. There's a great quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes. It is not the place we occupy which is important, but the direction in which we move.
Okay, so perfection is like the North Star.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You use it to navigate, you walk towards it, but you don't sit down and cry because you aren't literally standing on the star.
Right, you can't stand on a star. You would, burn up.
You would. And there's a great Persian proverb in the notes about this. It goes, "A wise man seeks wisdom, a madman thinks that he has found it."
So if you think you have to be perfect by Tuesday, you're the madman. You just freeze up.
Right. But if your goal is just to be moving towards it, then a messy first draft is actually a huge success. It's movement.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory. Keep moving, ignore the outhouse, but how do I know? How do I tell the difference between an outhouse I should ignore and a strategic hill I actually need to die on?
Because sometimes the details do matter.
They really do.
And that is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Fortunately, our stack has a very concrete tool for this, and it comes from the management guru, Peter Drucker.
Okay, Drucker is usually the gold standard for this kind of practical advice. What's his fix?
He uses something called feedback analysis. And what's fascinating is he didn't invent it. He basically adapted it from a practice that Jesuit priests and Calvinist pastors used for centuries
To do what?
to track their spiritual development.
Hmm.
Drucker just applied the same logic to career management.
So how does a modern person use a 500-year-old Jesuit tool?
It's actually very simple, but it requires patience. Step 1. Whenever you make a significant decision, hiring someone, launching a project, you write down exactly what you expect to happen.
A prediction. Like, I expect this marketing campaign will get 50 new leads by October.
Right. You write it down. Then step 2.
Yeah.
You wait. And Drucker suggests a pretty long window.
How long?
9 months.
9 months, wow. In today's world, that feels like an eternity.
It's a long loop, and that's the point. You can't judge strategic importance week to week. After 9 months, step 3, you compare the real results to what you wrote down. Drucker says this reveals 3 critical things about you.
What are they?
First, your strengths. You'll see where you were right, where you delivered. Second, what you need to improve, your blind spots. But the third one is the most important for our topic today.
Which is?
It shows you what you simply cannot do. The areas where you just have no competence.
Oof, that stings a little. The usual advice is if you find a weakness, you're supposed to work harder at it, right?
And Drucker says don't. That's the radical part. He says don't waste your life trying to get from low competence to average. It takes way more energy to go from incompetent to mediocre than it does to go from first rate to excellent.
That is a huge insight. So if I'm terrible at, say, administrative tasks and I spend hours trying to force myself to get better.
You are capturing the outhouse. You're majoring in a minor thing. If it's not a strength, delegate it, automate it, or just accept that it's a weakness and structure your work so it doesn't matter.
That's so liberating. It's permission to be bad at things that aren't your main thing.
It is. But notice, Drucker says only apply this to decisions of significance. Even the tool itself follows the rule. You don't do this for what you're having for lunch.
Right. So we've got the philosophy, direction over destination, and we have the tool for figuring out what matters. Now I want to shift to the actual work. There's a section here on the mechanics of momentum.
Yeah, and this connects directly to preparation. If you want to stop getting bogged down by small stuff during the day, you have to look at how you practice.
There's a line from Simon Sinek that totally flips how we think about practice. He says, practice isn't the thing you do once you're good. It's the thing you do that makes you good.
It seems so obvious, but we often treat practice like a performance. We try to win the practice session. The sources bring up a much grittier old saying, the more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in battle.
I've heard that, but the notes here add a nuance I hadn't thought about. It says the goal of a workout or any practice isn't to be destroyed by it, it's to be refreshed.
Right. Think about it. If you destroy yourself in practice, if you major in the minor thing of how much pain can I take today, you're shot for the actual event. The goal is building capacity. It's removing friction.
Friction is a great word for it. When you aren't prepared, every little thing causes friction.
Exactly. When you don't know your material cold, a weird look from a client can completely throw you off. That's a minor thing becoming a major one. But when you really know your stuff, you don't even notice the look. You just flow right past it.
The notes have a learning ladder for this. It's 4 steps. Here, see, do, teach.
It's a progression of mastery. Most of us stop at do. We think, okay, I can do this, so I'm an expert. But the research argues you haven't really mastered the major things until you can teach them.
Because you can't teach what you don't deeply, deeply understand.
And you can't fake teaching. When you try to explain something to someone else, it immediately reveals the gaps in your own knowledge. It forces you to go back and refine.
Speaking of preparation, there's a quote in here from a Coach Ortiz that I just have to read. It's like the ultimate alliteration on planning. Okay, I practiced this, so let's see if I can land it.
Let's hear it. No pressure.
Okay, here we go. Proper prior planning positively produces peaceful, patient, polite, persistent, philanthropic, pleasant, phenomenal, and powerful puertorriqueños.
You got it. That is an impressive number of P's.
It is. And what I love in that whole string of words is peaceful. We don't usually connect planning with peace. We connect it with stress and spreadsheets.
But the result of the planning is peace. That's the distinction. When you have that proper prior planning, you're not scrambling. You're not reacting to every little thing. You have momentum.
And momentum really does seem to be the antidote to all these minor things.
It's just physics, really. Think about riding a bike. When you're going super slow, every tiny pebble makes the wheel wobble. But when you've got speed, when you have momentum, you roll right over those same pebbles and you don't even feel them.
Baby steps move mountains. That was another phrase in here.
So true. The writer who produces a mediocre draft every single day builds momentum. They will always beat the writer who spends a week on one perfect paragraph.
The perfect paragraph writer is stopped by the pebbles.
Yeah, there's a sports analogy in the notes I like too. The eyes are quicker than the feet.
What does that mean?
Well, in basketball or soccer, if you're looking down at your feet, you're going to trip. You lose.
Yeah.
You have to look where you're going. And it's the same in life. If you're looking at all the minor things, the daily annoyances, you'll trip up. But if they keep your eyes on the big goal.
You just naturally navigate around the small stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. But what about when the obstacle isn't external? What happens when the minor thing we're majoring in is our own anger, our own grudges?
And that right there is the foundation for everything else. This is the internal thermostat. You can have all the right tools and all the momentum in the world, but if your mind is cluttered with small grievances, you can't think big.
The notes mention Marcus Aurelius here. He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe.
It sounds kind of high-minded, but it's just practical psychology. If you're carrying around anger or resentment, you're fragmenting your attention. You're leaking energy. One of the sources is really blunt about this. It says, hatred is a curse that does not affect the hated. It only injures the hater.
That's powerful. Holding a grudge is basically drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It's the ultimate example of majoring in a minor thing.
It suggests a daily practice, to clear the cache, release anger before you sleep. You have to decide your peace is more important than your anger.
There's also this idea that belief itself acts as a kind of thermostat for what you can achieve. Can you explain that?
It means your belief system sets the temperature for your life. If you set that thermostat low, if you believe you can only accomplish small things, then you will subconsciously create obstacles to prove yourself right.
You'll find the minor things to obsess over because they validate that feeling of being small.
Yes, they confirm your bias that life is hard. But if you set the thermostat high,
you think big. You create the conditions for success.
And here's the paradox that really stood out to me from the reading. Big ideas are often easier to execute than little ones.
That feels completely backward. Curing a disease has to be harder than fixing my printer?
Mechanically, sure, but socially, psychologically. Think about it. Little ideas like, how do I organize my desk? You have to do alone. You get trapped in your own head.
Right. Nobody's going to volunteer to help me clean my desk.
Exactly. But big ideas, how do we solve this community problem? Those ideas are magnetic. They force you to collaborate, to ask for help. And people want to help with a big vision.
So thinking small actually isolates you, which makes the work feel harder.
Precisely. And when you're focused on a huge vision, the minor slights, the rude emails, they just don't register. You don't have time for it. It makes you bulletproof to pettiness.
I love that. You don't need thick skin if you're just moving fast enough.
In a way, yeah. And it changes your whole self-perception. The text quotes from Desiderata. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here.
That's such a beautiful line. You have a right to be here.
And when you really believe that, you stop feeling like you have to win every small battle just to justify your existence. You don't need to be right about the traffic to feel valuable. You already are.
It shifts the focus from proving yourself to
What?
Expressing yourself, serving others.
And that's the ultimate point. This isn't just about personal productivity. It's about service. There's a Margaret Fuller line that sums it up perfectly. If you have knowledge, let others light their candles at it.
That's the visual to end on. Lighting other people's candles?
You can't do that if you're busy shielding your own little flame from every draft. You can't do it if you're using your fire to burn grudges. You have to be open. You have to share the light.
It all comes down to what the sources call the 4 pillars. The only 4 words, they argue, that are worth majoring in.
Love, honesty, truth, and respect.
That's the list.
That is the war worth winning. Everything else, the typo, the awkward silence, the guy who cut you off, that is all just the outhouse.
It's just noise.
And you have permission to let it go.
I think that's what everyone needs to hear. You have permission to let it go.
You really do.
So, here is the challenge for everyone listening. The next time you feel that little spike of anger, that rise in your blood pressure because something went slightly wrong, just pause.
Take that split second.
And ask yourself that magic question.
Is this really important?
And if the answer is no, and 90% of the time it will be, use your freedom. Don't capture the outhouse. Keep marching toward your star.
What?
Thank you so much for this. It has certainly changed how I'm going to look at my to-do list for the rest of the day.
Hopefully we can all light a few more candles.
We'll see you next time.